Welcome back, everyone. 5 weeks into the Israel-Hamas war, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is facing growing pressure, both domestically and internationally. For the first time since the war began, Israel's opposition leader, Yair Rapid, has called on Mr. Netanyahu to resign, saying the Israeli leader has lost the public's trust. The Prime Minister has been blamed by critics at home for the security lapse, as you well know, that led to the October the 7th attacks, while many foreign leaders have criticized him for not doing enough to keep civilians in Gaza safe as Israel hunts down Hamas. And this comes as hundreds of family members of hostages and their supporters take part in a 5-day protest march from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Desperate as well as frustrated, and we have heard from several on the show, they are demanding the Israeli government do more to secure the hostages' release. For more on what may lie ahead for the Prime Minister, I want to bring in Yair Rapid. He's a senior columnist and editor for the Jerusalem Post and previously served as a publications director-in-chief. Yair, thank you very much for taking the time to speak to us here on the show. I'm keen to get your thoughts on that comment, first of all, from Yair Rapid calling for Netanyahu to resign. I mean, 5 weeks into this war. How is it being received and seen? And did that comment surprise you to start off with?
Yair Rapid is the head of the opposition. It's his job, essentially, to try to replace the prime minister and to form a different coalition and to remove Prime Minister Netanyahu from office, right? That is his role as the head of the opposition in Israel's parliament, known as the Knesset. It's being received, I would say, in kind of split way within Israeli society. There are those Israelis who believe that, like Netanyahu has said, now is not the time for Israel to have this reckoning and to begin to think about what will happen and who's to blame and why did this all happen and the failures. That can wait till after the war. But there are others who believe that it is important for this conversation to be had now and that accountability is required even as Israeli soldiers are fighting on the ground in the Gaza Strip against Hamas.
And Lapid also said that there would be broad support, it seems, to form a unity government led by Netanyahu's right-wing Likud party, but under a new leader. I mean, if this is the case and there is enough support, what does this say potentially about Netanyahu's future here?
Look, Netanyahu is weak, Isa, right? He's not what he used to be. We've seen Netanyahu now prime minister for pretty much the last 15 years. And if you add the 3 years that he was prime minister in the 1990s, he's Israel's longest serving prime minister. He was believed to be, they called him Mr. Teflon, like nothing could touch him. But he is weak and he's a bit bloodied because of what happened on October 7th. He was the mastermind, essentially, of the policy that believed in containment of Hamas. And that was shattered when thousands of Hamas fighters crossed into Israel and carried out that massacre on October 7th that has now led to this war that's protracted already for 6 weeks long and we don't see an end in sight. 240 Israelis still being held hostage in the Gaza Strip. This is a severe escalation, and it has his fingerprints all over it. So to the extent of what could happen the day after, well, is if he stays in office, and it looks like that's what he plans to do, I would expect to see a number of things happen. Number one is his Likud party, which has been loyal to him through all the elections that we've been through, 5, as a matter of fact, in the last few years. There could be a split within that party, and they could decide to get rid of him internally and elect a new leader who could then potentially form a coalition, which would not require a new election. What could also happen is I would expect a massive protest by the public, joined by the hundreds of thousands of reservists. 360,000 Israelis have been called up to serve in this conflict in the north along the border with Lebanon, as well as, of course, in the south, inside Gaza and along that border. These are people who are frustrated by what's happening. They're now 6 weeks almost in uniform, taken away from their homes, their families, their places of employment. They are also frustrated with what's happening. So there's going to be a lot of public outrage and an uproar, I would think, much bigger than any of the protests we've seen during those 8-9 months of the rift and division in Israeli society over Netanyahu's judicial overhaul that brought about that unprecedented rift. So expect a lot more of that.
Let me tap into what you just said then about the reservists, Yair, because you wrote a piece recently titled "The IDF Reservists Fighting Gaza Will Fight Netanyahu After the War." Just flesh this out for us. I mean, you know, they're fighting the war there seems to be unity, at least there was unity post this horrendous attack on October the 7th. Why will then the reservists go against Netanyahu? Just explain to us. And what have they been telling you? What have you been hearing from families on this?
Look, the reservists, I'll take you back in time for a moment to 2006. In 2006, in the aftermath of the Second Lebanon War, that was a 34-day conflict with Hezbollah. The prime minister at the time was Ehud Olmert, and Netanyahu was actually at the time the head of the opposition. He helped put together a massive protest of the reservists. So when they came back from Lebanon, they went straight to a park opposite the Knesset and the prime minister's office and began to protest, calling on Olmert, who was then the prime minister, to step down. What Olmert ended up doing was appointing and establishing a state commission of inquiry to look into the failures of that war, which actually in the end pointed him and said he was the one who was responsible. I would expect a very similar scenario now. Those reservists who are fighting against Israel's enemies, Hamas and Hezbollah, they are in uniform, and being in uniform in Israel gives you some credibility. It gives you legitimacy. The IDF in society is viewed with this elevated status because of the nature of just Israel and the threats that it faces all these 75 years that we've been a country. And therefore, when they come back and they give back their weapons, they give back their equipment, they're still going to be in uniform. I would expect thousands, if not tens of thousands of them to come to that same park and to again make similar demands like were made in 2006. But I don't know that a state commission of inquiry this time is going to suffice. They might sit in there and demand that he step down.
Wow. Okay, that's very interesting. And I'm keen to get your thoughts also on the families, the hostages. We've seen, and we played video there of, I think there's 5 days of protests from these families. And we've spoken to families of hostages here who want Netanyahu out. One family said to me they blame him for allowing Hamas to become strong. Give us a sense of putting politics aside, of the public mood.
Look, the public is torn. On the one hand, you're right, like you mentioned before, he said there is a great sense of unity today within Israeli society because we all feel that this is a threat against all of us. It doesn't make a difference if you're a religious Jew, if you're a secular Jew, if you are left-wing, right-wing, you're in favor of the judicial overhaul, you're against it, you like Netanyahu, you don't. Hamas wasn't asking those questions. They were coming to kill every single Jew that they could get their hands on. And that's what they essentially did. So therefore, this unity is really remarkable. But I have to say with pain that when the war is over, we will quickly fall back into those same positions we were in the past when it's, do we want Netanyahu? Do we not want Netanyahu? Back to the left-right questions of the past. And therefore, Israelis would want to keep that unity, but they know it won't be simple. And then you have the hostages. And I think we have to recognize that while there might be some success on the battlefields in Gaza, from the Israeli military perspective, they're not getting back the hostages yet. And even if there's a deal, if there is not a deal, this is something that could accompany us for a long time, if not months, years ahead. If we look at past precedents when they took captives, and this is going to be heart-wrenching, and they're going to go after Netanyahu and blame him for what happened.
Yaakov, really important insight. Really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us. Thanks very much, Yaakov.